Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I did want to, before I get into my substantial presentation, to wish the constituents of East Grand Bahama, but also to wish all of the people of the Bahamas a happy independence. Independence is one of those holidays, one of those celebrations I think that we all can equally get behind. It is one of those holidays that reminds us about unity. It reminds us that there is far more that unites us than divides us. It reminds us about all of those good things about being Bahamian. And I also want to publicly commend and I know that members of the government did it yesterday, and also members of the opposition did it yesterday as well, but also to commend our men's national basketball team for the tremendous job, for the tremendous job, Mr. Deputy, that they have done. They have made all of us, they've made all of us proud. You know, I saw a post yesterday, Mr. Deputy, just before the game. I saw a post which, you know, said about Spain and the accomplishments that Spain had, and someone, and then they said right underneath it, you know, these are the kinds of stories that movies are made of. And that was one of those points in my mind that had the Bahamas won, I think the entire world would have heard the cry of the little small country. The entire world would have heard the cry and the congratulations of a small country. But, Mr. Deputy, we are so proud of them. They have done what no other Bahamian basketball team, I think, has ever done. And so we 100% congratulate them. They should walk with their heads held extremely high, not just high, but extremely high, because of all of the wonderful things that they have done. So we 100% congratulate all of them. Mr. Deputy, also, it is good once again to be able to speak in this place. It is a privilege to be able to speak in this place on behalf of the good and the special people of East Grand Bahama. Mr. Deputy, I support what the member for Marco City has said. A number of these points I will also reinforce and develop further, but he has done a tremendous job in terms of articulating the concerns that those of us on this side have had. The Bahamas government, Mr. Deputy, had signed an agreement to become a shareholder of this development bank in April of this year. I believe it was the Senator Halkidas who had said that CAF's commitment to improving quality of life strategically aligns with the government of Bahamas' goals to achieve the development objectives of the country through the application of key social and economic activities. And what we are doing here today was foreshadowed by the Prime Minister in his budget communication. But again, Mr. Deputy, as was stated by the member for Marco City, is that the cost of the subscription fee is $50 million over a period of 2 years. Well, the subscription cost, the cost to purchase the shares is $50 million.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Exum and Ragged Island.
The member is a former minister of state for finance and an attorney, in fact. He knows full well that a fee is different from the cost of purchasing shares. And I would have great respect for him, Mr. Deputy. but I want him not to mislead the public that we're paying some fee to become a part of the organization, when at the same time, he's saying we're purchasing shares. A fee is different from an investment every day of the week. It's not a synonym.
It's a fee.
It might be a synonym in show business, Mr. Speaker, but not in business, not in investments, and not in government. Let's be clear about it.
Time.
Mr. Deputy,
They took you on education.
Mr. Deputy, let me be more specific. Let me be more specific in terms of referring to the bill itself. The subscriber will pay the subscription price with immediately available funds. So if you want me to change the word fee, I'll change the word fee and I'll put inside here price, because that's what in essence that's what I said, which is it is a price that you are paying for shares.
Don't in essence.
Mr. Deputy,
Order, members.
it is a price that you are paying. Yeah, the same way how fee is different from tax in your view. But Mr. Deputy, as I said, the bottom line is we are paying $50 million. We are paying $50 million for the price of shares. This is again, a significant sum that the people of the Bahamas are being asked to pay. 50 million could be used in any number of different ways that would be required by the Bahamian public. Now, I accept that that CAF would broaden opportunities for access to development, finance, and guaranteed linked credit. But at the same time, the question to ask, Mr. Deputy, is always, what benefits are we getting, and are those benefits worth the $50 million? Let's also, Mr. Deputy, not oversell what we are doing here today.
Yes.
The government is starting a relationship with another bank to borrow additional, or to have access to be able to borrow additional funding, and will pay $50 million to do so. That is, in essence, what we are doing here today. And what the member for Marco City said, which I 100% agree with, is it is up to the government now to lay out the business case as to why it is the $50 million is necessary for us to do so. So we may agree with you, but you have to lay out for us why it is that you felt it was necessary to be able to spend $50 million, or spend 25 this year and 25 next year. And these are the things that you are getting as a result of your, what you call investment, as a result of your investment of the $50 million. Recently, CAF has begun a process of expanding its operations into the Caribbean. Recently, the president of CAF said, we are also reaching out to the rest of the Caribbean community, to bring them into our CAF family. Again, what that said to me was, and they could correct me if I'm wrong, but did we go out to seek them, or is this as a result of their expansion initiative into the rest of the Caribbean? He also said, Mr. Deputy, we plan to deepen our work there and expand across the region, complementing the work of the Caribbean Development Bank and the IDB. So, Mr. Deputy, another point which we hope the government has considered, or which we expect them also to have considered, is you are spending $50 million, not a significant amount, but you are already you already have a very good working relationship with the Caribbean Development Bank and the IDB. And I'm sure that they would not mind having additional business. What I would ask is, what is special? What is different that we will be obtaining from CAF that one is worth the $50 million? Also, another question is, will the rates that we will be obtaining from CAF be different from, are they better, are they the same, are they worse than the Caribbean Development Bank and the IDB? Again, these are important, significant questions that if you are, right now, you have access to funding from the Caribbean Development Bank and you have access to funding from the IDB. We are now being asked to spend an additional $50 million. So lay out for us what we are getting from CAF, either that we are not going to be getting or not able to get from the Caribbean Development Bank or from the IDB, which makes paying that additional $50 million worth it. We are not saying it's not, but what we are saying is lay out for us what additional benefit we are going to get by paying this additional $50 million. Will the rates be less? And I accept what the member for Bain and Grantstown has said in terms of you may not have entered into official conversations with CAF because you are not yet a member, but I'm sure there is a contemplation as to what projects you could possibly use or what projects you could possibly envision if you do enter into a relationship with CAF. In fact, you would have entered or signed this agreement from April. So if you had signed this agreement from April, I'm sure that this agreement was not just sitting on the desk from April until now, but I'm sure that you would have in your contemplation what type projects you would like to put forward or you would like to be able to discuss with CAF. The IDB is also very large. You know, they had granted us the $500 million guarantee to the Bahamas government, amongst other loans. A very important question would be what could this bank also provide that the IDB could not? Right now, we have existing relationships with the IDB. So we're not paying any additional price for additional shares with the IDB. What are you getting in addition to what you could already get from the IDB? We need you to lay that out for us. Explain for us what is the additional benefits that you are getting that you already do not have access to. That's the point that the member for Marco City was making, and the point that we make is tell us what those additional benefits are that cause you to say, we have $50 million, we can spend this additional $50 million for it. What are those things that we are going to get that you do not have access to already through the IDB? The government also has also said a lot about their, they've also, as I said, not said, in fact, the member for Bain and Grantstown says that you have not entered into discussions with them as yet. And these banks, again, one thing I could say, they are very good at accessing your needs. And they are very good at providing you with their loan programs to assist with your needs. They are very good at doing that. Watch me. Watch me. But, Mr. Deputy, and providing, they are very good at being able to access or assess what your particular needs are. And they are very good at providing you with these proposals to meet your needs. Now, I would almost bet that they themselves, CAF, have their own ideas as to how they can assist the Bahamas, and I would be very surprised if they have not entered into conversations with or started talking to different ministers as to what would be available and what items they are able to speak about. So again, I ask, have different ministers been having discussions with CAF? And what are those areas that you've been having discussions with CAF on? I also understand that these loan agreements, they take years. Years to be able to complete and years to be able to implement and to finish. In fact, sometimes those loan agreements, they don't ever get finished because of the processes that have gone through. But we believe, Mr. Deputy, that the government should be able to say what are some of the areas that we are looking at or we would like to enter into discussions with the bank on. Transparency for the government in this case is very key because, again, $50 million is not a small amount that we are paying. So if you want to say to the public, well, there are a number of road projects that we would like to put to CAF, or there are some digital transformation projects, or there are some other infrastructure projects, there are bridges. If you want to say that these are some of the projects that you want to put forward to speak to CAF about, then fine. Are you having discussions with other non-governmental agencies, with other SOEs, in terms of funding or CAF funding projects with respect to these other SOEs? Are there discussions on airports, infrastructure development, the Family Islands? Are there discussions going on with respect to those? We believe that there ought to be discussions with CAF and other institutions on small business funding. We believe this is a critical need that the government ought to be speaking to institutions like CAF, institutions like the IDB and the World Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank on how we are able to advance small business funding and how we are able to advance the ease of doing business initiatives. You know, we need, Mr. Deputy, this government needs to become more business friendly. You know, they need to also have a more zeroed in focus on the ease of doing business and focus on dealing with matters that how businesses can, how they can do business more conveniently and how they can also assist. You know, in 2020, the World Bank did a release. And I want to quote from the World Bank's release in 2020, when it respects to business, to ease of doing business. And I quote, coming from the World Bank, with 4 reforms, the Bahamas implemented the most business facilitating measures. They were speaking about what was happening in the Caribbean. The country made the process of starting a business faster and less expensive by reducing registration times registration times for business licenses and valued added tax, and by eliminating business registration fees. Authorities cut the time needed for an entrepreneur to complete all required formalities to start a business license in half to 11.5 days. The Bahamas also strengthened minority investors' rights by increasing conflict of interest disclosure requirements, clarifying ownership and control structures, and requiring greater corporate transparency. This was a report that came from, or a press release that came from the World Bank in 2020. We don't see these type of initiatives from this government. We also do not see whether they have maintained those type initiatives that were left in place by the Free National Movement. What we could see is some new initiatives, or what we ought to be seeing is some new initiatives on how we improve starting a business, on how we improve renewing business licenses, how we improve paying taxes, how we improve businesses getting additional financing. These are some of the things that the government ought to have been saying they are going to use their membership or this new membership in CAF. They ought to have been saying, look, we are going to put forward these particular programs, and this is how the Bahamian public should be able to benefit from it. Not just saying we're going to enter into this agreement, or we are going to pay this subscription price, and this is what, and we now will become a member of it. They must be more specific in terms of saying how it will benefit the public. Mr. Deputy, this bill also reminds us of different questions that the government has not yet answered. The IDB had guaranteed a $500 million loan. And there has been various explanations on how this $500 million was actually spent. The Prime Minister told Parliament that the people, and told Parliament and the people, that the proceeds of the $500 million loan were not by covenant agreement to be used for debt refinancing, but for financing budgetary expenditures throughout the year. That's what he said. We were borrowing this money. It was not to be, the Prime Minister said to Parliament, that it was not to be used for debt refinancing or to pay off old loans. But that is it, that he also said that it is for financing budgetary expenditures throughout the year. These were his own words. But the government's own published public debt statistical bulletin report demonstrates that the government had to use a portion of the $500 million loan proceeds for rollover of debt and not just budget expenditure. Why is that? Well, if you look at the report, at page 13 of the report, out of that, the government said this fiscal year they took out $811 million in foreign currency loans. They took out $811 million in foreign currency loans and used most of that to pay off, to repay $662 in existing debt. Simple math would demonstrate that a substantial portion of the $500 million loan would have had to have been used to facilitate debt refinancing. And this was again recently, just a few days ago, raised by, in the Nassau Guardian, raised again additional questions after the government published their annual borrowing plan. Mr. Deputy, the simple truth is that it would have been illegal for the government to use the full $500 million for general budgetary expenses because, as the government so eloquently explained at page 5 of their published last year's annual borrowing plan for the previous year's fiscal year, the government only has parliamentary approval, or they only had parliamentary approval for new borrowing, which totaled $131 million. So Parliament only approved the government to borrow $131 million in terms of new borrowing. So it would have been illegal for you to borrow this $500 million for budgetary expenses because you did not get parliamentary approval to do so. So the primary purpose of that loan had to help refinance or roll over existing debt. If the government continues to insist, boy, I wish you would.
On his feet.
I wish you would say that.
On your feet.
Standing up.
On your feet.
You would clarify this quite easily. You would have clarified that point quite easily.
Be yield to you.
But, Mr. Deputy, if the government continues to insist that the $500 million is all new borrowing and was not used to finance debt or refinance debt, then the government must provide evidence of the legal authority for them to do so and to explain what the $500 million was for. Mr. Deputy, it is amazing that the government has taken out $500 million, but there is no clear explanation as to where this $500 million went to and how this $500 million was spent. There is no clear view, no clear articulation
My Lord.
as to how the $500 million was spent.
They can clarify
It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that you have borrowed $500 million. You have borrowed $500 million, but you have not clearly said this is how that $500 million was spent.
We know how you spend your money.
Mr. Deputy, again, and this was a point.
We know how you spend your money.
This was a point again that was raised by the member for Marco City, which I again agree with and reinforce that you've also taken out, or you've also provided $100 million to BPL, which you call is a loan. And I see this also articulated at page 24 of your fiscal strategy report. But you didn't do it in the proper, ordinary way through subventions, because again, if you had given them $100 million additional in subventions, that would have screwed up your deficit. So you say it's a loan. You say it's a loan. But that notwithstanding, the proceeds for this loan were paid out of the consolidated fund. See, Mr. Deputy, the $100 million came from the consolidated fund. The Constitution says that anything that comes from the consolidated fund must be allocated through the budget and approved by Parliament. The two are connected. That in order for the money to come out of the consolidated fund, it has to be allocated in the budget, and then Parliament must approve the spending of the budget. Again, it all falls in line that if you're going to spend government monies, Parliament must approve you spending government funds. So you've taken it out of the consolidated fund, but you did not allocate it through the budget process. Which means if it was not allocated through the budget process, you did not get parliamentary approval to do so. So again, Mr. Deputy, that is why we say that the $100 million which you said you have spent and you have given to BPL is an illegal loan because Parliament did not approve it. Mr. Deputy, this also brings us again to a very important point again, that was raised by, what's my time? 4 more minutes. Oh, I got 2 more minutes? Okay. They told me I wasn't gonna make it. But Mr. Deputy, in my final 2 minutes, this also again raises the question of the government's PPP, their initiatives in terms of the PPP. Again, it is a point that was raised by Marco City. But and they say that this is their initiative. So if you've decided that you're going to have infrastructure development by focusing on these PPPs, we say you are breaching the government-established PPP written policy. Because one, that written policy requires you to go through a procurement process. It doesn't matter whether that person who you have agreed to or who you anticipate agreeing to comes to you with a proposal. The policy says even if they come to you with a proposal, you must still go through the process of a procurement process, a transparent, clear procurement process. And in addition, it also says that you must disclose the financial terms of that agreement. Mr. Deputy, this government has announced a number of different PPP arrangements. But to my knowledge, they have not made the financial arrangements of those PPPs public. And so if you did these same projects through CAF, you would have had to make these things public, because if the government did it, CAF would. Or if IDB, same process. If the government doesn't do it, then IDB will make it public. So, Mr. Deputy, again, we are calling upon the government to justify the paying of the $50 million subscription price, and to say to the public, this is what you will be getting as a result of you paying this $50 million. And we have yet to hear the specifics on what are the benefits, the specific benefits that the country will get. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honourable Member.